WCNC Charlotte. This is Flashpoint, where power and politics collide and the tough questions get asked and answered.
Thanks for joining us here on Flashpoint. I'm Ben Thompson. This week, North Carolina party politics playing out right here in Mecklenburg County. Republicans fast-tracking new abortion restrictions with the help of newly minted Republican Trisha Cotham. Her recent party switch giving Republicans a supermajority in the General Assembly. Cotham had spent years promising voters she'd protect a woman's right to choose. It's now forcing both parties to dig in ahead of what's likely to be a tough battle ahead in the next election cycle. In a moment, you'll hear from the chair of the Mecklenburg County Republican Party on their new power up in Raleigh. But first, joining us now is the new chair of the Mecklenburg County Democratic Party, Drew Kromer. Drew, thanks for coming on and congratulations on the new job.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
When it comes to abortion, do you feel like your party fell short in making this the issue for voters last November, considering that a majority of Americans in polls say that they support some abortion sort of rights out there in some variety?
Well, I think that this is definitely one of the very important issues that our party needs to be addressing. There are a number of issues, and it's hard sometimes to rank which one of them needs to be our top priority. I think that people need to understand the consequences of their local races. When we don't win the Supreme Court seats like the two that we had in 2020, that has a massive impact on other things down the road. And Democrats can't take back the state Supreme Court until 2028. I think if we don't tie some of these important issues like abortion and gerrymandering, to some of these other races, people don't understand the reason that they need to turn out in a race that otherwise wouldn't seem super important to them.
Yeah, you just spoke about it. The North Carolina Supreme Court last week ruling Republican-backed voter ID laws are now legal, basically allowing the Republican majority in the General Assembly to draw district lines. How does that change your approach in the upcoming election?
Yeah, so it's hard to say right now because we don't know what the maps are going to be. And it looks like we could end up with changes in the state House maps, the state Senate maps, and our congressional maps. So, depending on how those maps shake out, that will have a huge impact on what we end up having to do as far as our candidates goes. But, I think it's going to be really important next time we have an opportunity to take back some seats in the state Supreme Court that we really help people understand why those races are important.
Here in Mecklenburg County, your job is, I don't want to say it's an easy one, but Mecklenburg County is a blue county. Charlotte's a blue city, solidly Democratic. That said, statewide races like governor, lieutenant governor rely on Mecklenburg County Democrats to sort of represent themselves because they need them. How does that make your job more difficult?
Absolutely. And you hit it right on the head. That's the most important thing for us is turnout here in Mecklenburg. We can win a lot of our local races, but if we're not driving that overall score for statewide Democrats, they mathematically can't win. And so if Josh Stein, whomever the Democratic nominee for governor is going to be, for them to win, they're gonna need Mecklenburg to punch at its weight. Wake County in 2020, their turnout was 56%, and the statewide was 51%, and in Mecklenburg we were down at 45%. So that 11% difference in overall turnout, that was 80,000 votes. And the numbers, the gap becomes even larger when you're talking about presidential races. So it's absolutely incumbent on us here in Mecklenburg to drive that turnout up if we want to give our Democrats a fighting chance in the statewide races.
And given the stakes that we've outlined before, what do you think was the reason for that smaller number here in Mecklenburg County?
Yeah, so personally, I think there's a lot of different issues that are at play here, but the one that really stands out to me is, what we were talking about earlier. If you win a lot of your local races, then you're not going to have that local campaign to remind people to vote, to drive enthusiasm, to really give people a reason to go out. So, we as the Democratic Party, we have to help people understand, the consequences of not turning out in some of those races because those statewide candidates, need us so badly. And so we have to, create that artificial enthusiasm that might otherwise be there if you had someone running for state house or city council and it was going to be a competitive race.
Do you think the Trisha Cotham party switch, do you feel like that has energized your base here in Mecklenburg County?
Absolutely. And I think that that's really, that's what we need to be focusing on is how can we channel our energy as we get ready for the next cycle we've got a lot of important races coming up in 2023 and obviously in 2024. And, I've been really impressed with our party. We've been able to take it in stride and really try to double down and refocus on, building a stronger party and ultimately increasing our overall turnout.
Have you spoken with folks who are interested in running against Cotham if she runs again next year?
Yes, but I would assume that she's not going to run for that district again. It's my assumption that she has aspirations for higher office. So I don't think she would have made that party switch if she was intending to run for District 112 again.
What's your challenge? You laid out the sort of getting people above that 45% that we saw last year in Charlotte. But when you have and we talk about this all the time, a Republican-dominated General Assembly, but you then have a very Democrat-dominated city here of Charlotte. How do you make up for what is often an urban-rural divide, a Raleigh-Charlotte divide, and effectively communicate that to voters who often here in Charlotte live in a bubble, and a lot of their neighbors feel the same way they do, a lot of their friends feel the same way they do. You go outside 45 or beyond that, and maybe a little bit more, and there's a much more sort of diversity in thought. How do you convey that to voters, and why that's a big deal?
Yeah, so I think this is one of those places where I'm really excited to see what our new state party chair, Anderson Clayton, is able to do. She came from a rural county, and she's really trying to help the Democratic Party reprioritize our communication to rural voters. And I think the Democratic Party historically has made the decision that, well, rural voters, they're not going to go our way. So let's focus, in places, our urban centers, where we believe we've got more of our own people, and it's more cost effective for us to really try to, target them and communicate democratic values to them. But as a result, we've ended up completely abdicating some of these rural spaces. And I think it's really important on the party to make that long-term investment, because if people don't hear from us, they're only going to be consuming or listening to the ideas of the other side. So we as Democrats need to be, do a better job of going places where we might not be as comfortable and where it might not make the most sense in any one race, but will make more sense long-term. And I'm really excited to see what she's able to do, because I know that this is a top priority for her.
Do you feel that Democratic voters in, say, Anson County and Democratic voters here in Mecklenburg County, do you think that they share the same interests?
I think so. I think we all have a baseline, core values that we share. And, we're a big tent party. We've got people who are going to be, more moderate. We've got people who are going to be more progressive. And, I believe, though, at the core, we have some baseline ideas that we all share.
All right, Drew Kromer, thanks for coming on Flashpoint, and congratulations on the new gig as well. We appreciate you coming on.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Drew, thanks. More Flashpoint after this.